Okay. Hi, Riley.
Hi, Alex.
Thanks for coming in today.
Absolutely.
So you took the MBTI assessment. Tell me what your experience was like taking that test.
Sure. So it was
Not test inventory.
okay. It was a pretty good experience. There were a few parts where I had trouble deciding between a few, and I know it said to kind of go with your gut and have like kind of an instant choice, but there were a couple parts where I noticed that I was like getting stuck, and I was like, oh, that's not what I'm supposed to do. And then I just kind of kept moving on. But it was a pretty good experience.
Okay.
I took this a couple years ago, so I was familiar with it. But yeah, it was nice to take it again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so some of the questions were a little difficult to answer, but for the most part, it went pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
Okay, glad to hear that. So let's take a look at your results. So I see you were an INFP, so we'll start at the top. The first one measures the difference between extroversion and introversion. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you're shy or anything like that. People who prefer introversion tend to focus on the inner world and ideas and impressions. Does that sound like?
Yeah, that sounds just like me. I think I'm very introverted. I do a lot of internal processing, so I'm not really much of a verbal processor. I notice that in discussions, I kind of tend to keep to myself, but I really gain knowledge from listening to other people. So like having those extroverts and those people who really focus on extroversion really helps me because that's not quite how I process. And just having other people who do process like that really helps kind of move me along.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you're more of a listener, that you listen to others and learn from them as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then kind of process that internally.
Exactly.
Okay. So the next one is it measures the difference between sensing and intuition. And intuitive people are people who prefer to take information from patterns in the big picture and focus on future possibilities, whereas people who score higher in the sensing area tend to focus on the five senses in the here and now. So does that intuitive trait sound like you?
Sort of. So I was a little surprised with this result. I think that I'm very set in my ways with planning ahead, and I really like to plan, but lately I've been trying to kind of get out of that. I've been trying to live more in the here and now. So I feel like maybe a couple years ago when I took this test, my N score was probably a lot higher. I'm trying to move away from that, but I know that this isn't something you can just kind of change just because you want to.
Right. Okay, so it sounds like you value staying in the here and now, and you see some benefits to that, but in the past you've tended to lean more toward focusing on the big picture and future possibilities and things like that.
Right.
And I do see that that was your lowest score down here, so you do lean more towards sensing than any of the other traits, so it sounds like you working toward changing those characteristics has been effective. So the next one is the difference between thinking and feeling. So people who score higher in the feeling category tend to make decisions based on their values and subjective evaluation of person-centered concerns, whereas people who are in the thinking category make decisions based on logic and objective analysis. And that doesn't mean to say that you don't use logic or objective analysis to make your decisions, but that you tend to think of others when you're making decisions. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, that sounds totally right. I noticed that I tend to put other people's feelings ahead of my own. For better or for worse, sometimes that works out really well, sometimes not so much. But I've had friends especially comment like, you know, you seem to really put other people's feelings kind of above your own, but it's okay, like you don't have to do that. But I think just that comes naturally to me.
Okay, so it sounds like you're selfless and you tend to think about others before thinking about your own needs.
Right.
And I do see that that was one of your second highest category next to introversion. And the last one is between judging and perceiving. And so you scored in the perceiving category, and that states that you're flexible, spontaneous, and you want to keep your options open, whereas people who are in the judging category are more planned and organized and things like that. And that's not to say you're not organized or are able to plan, but you lean more toward a spontaneous approach to life. Does that sound accurate?
It does, yeah. I remember the first time I took this inventory, I scored higher on judging actually, and that was a time in my life where I was, extremely organized and I had to have everything planned out. But I noticed that as I've gotten older, I tend to kind of be more of that perceiving person. So I like to wait until the last possible second to make decisions. I like to have my options open.
Okay. Tell me more about what may have changed that led you from the J to the B.
I think when I started my undergraduate career, I like to just kind of keep my options as open as possible. I put off making a decision for a college until kind of like the last second, which kind of came back to bite me in the butt. But that's what I did. I just liked so many things about all these different colleges that I didn't want to make a decision right away, and I didn't want to be restricted. I wanted to kind of explore as much as possible.
Okay. So it sounds like as you've gotten older, you've had to make bigger, more important decisions, and you want to take as much time as possible to think that through so that you know you're making the best possible choice.
Right.
Okay. And I think that coincides with the introversion trait. You're kind of processing that deeply and making that decision. Okay, so let's move on to the next part of the assessment. So the next part of the assessment is your preferred work task and environment, and it states that you enjoy helping others develop or learn, working on projects that are personally meaningful to you, expressing creativity through writing or visual arts, focusing on future possibilities, and working at a task that allows you to step back and see the big picture. Tell me how you feel about those.
I feel like that's really accurate. The part that jumped out at me the most was helping people develop and learn. So in my current career path, I want to go into student affairs. And last fall, I took a course on student development theory, so really learning about how students develop and how they learn. And I've noticed that since I took that course, I'm really noticing like how my students are developing and how I can help them develop. So I feel like this is really accurate.
Okay. Yeah, so student development sounds like something that would fit very well with all of these, helping others develop and learn especially. And then the next part is your preferred work environment. So your results state that you would enjoy private time and space to concentrate, emphasizes work that has meaning beyond the paycheck, offers opportunities to work in harmony with others, fosters cooperation and helping, and trusts people to work autonomously without close supervision. Does that sound accurate?
It does, yeah, especially the part about the work being meaningful. So when I was an undergrad, I had a lot of mentors who really helped my college experience to be the best that it could be. So being able to do that for other students is really where I find meaning in my career.
Okay.
So yeah, it sounds really accurate.
Yeah, from everything you've told me, it sounds like these are very accurate, especially like fosters cooperation and helping. So it sounds like you have a passion for working with students. So let's go on to the next part. Okay, so the next part is the type of strengths that will help you. So reflecting carefully on what is important to you, thinking about long-term prospects and opportunities associated with your job, come across as personable and friendly in interviews, remain open to new opportunities, and considering how others may be affected by your decision. Tell me what you think about the strengths that may help you in your future career.
I really like hearing those. I feel like they're really validating for someone going into my career. Just kind of thinking about how our actions affect others and how we put others' feelings kind of ahead of our own sometimes.
Okay, so it sounds like that's valuable to you to sort of reflect on what might help you become a stronger teacher once you get into that.
Right.
The next one is, it states that your style has probably helped you develop strengths in, and then having insight about what's important to others, devising creative solutions to problems, working autonomously to realize your ideal or vision, communicating your thoughts and values in writing, and helping others develop and reach their full potential. Tell me, have you had any experiences in previous jobs doing any of these things that have led to success?
I have, yes. So my internship this past year was in academic advising.
Mhm.
And I had a lot of experience working autonomously, and that was really something that I valued. So for example, preparing for student advising sessions, just having a couple minutes to work by myself, which I guess kind of comes into the introversion part. Just having a few minutes to kind of review that student's case and just to really kind of get an idea of that student and review any notes. So yeah, I really value working autonomously.
Okay, so sort of sitting down, processing what you have to do next,
Mhm.
and then going into, it sounds like that allows you to have that insight about what's important to others. You sit down, you think about it, and then you can kind of figure out what to do from there.
Yeah, exactly.
The next piece talks about jobs and applications. So the results of the assessment state that the most attractive job families to you are arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media, education, personal care, healthcare support, and community and social services. How do you feel about the results of this?
I like those results. So a lot of my hobbies are in the arts. I've considered careers in the arts before, but I don't think I'm especially talented. So I kind of decided to lean towards a career in education. So I like that that came up too.
Okay, so it sounds like your hobbies are reflective on these results. So the arts are at the top, and then education's a close second, which is what you said you wanted to go into. So it sounds like that was accurate for you.
Yeah.
And then if we move on, so your most popular occupations, based on the type that you got, are commercial art director, social science research assistant, psychiatrist, veterinary assistant, or musician. Tell me what you think about those results.
Those are interesting because none of them really have to do with education, but a lot of them are careers that I've previously considered. So for example, psychiatry or the one related to art. Those are things that I've considered, but never felt strongly enough about to pursue as a career.
Okay. So it may not be what you want to go into right now, but it's something that you thought about before and something that may be reflective of the type that the assessment indicated, that INFP.
Right.
And then let's go through so you got INFP, and some of the things that it says about that are idealistic, loyal to their values and to people who are important to them, want an external life that is congruent with their values, curious, quick to see possibilities, can be catalysts for implementing ideas, seek to understand people and to help them fulfill their potential, adaptable, flexible, and accepting unless a value is threatened.
I really like the part about helping people fulfill their potential.
Mhm.
I think that kind of goes back to that development piece that we were talking about earlier. So that's something I really have a passion for, is helping students develop and kind of find their careers, find their path in life, and really, have something that fulfills them.
From everything you told me, it sounds like that's incredibly important to you. I know you mentioned advising sessions with students, so that could coincide with helping them reach their full potential and achieve their goals.
Mhm.
And that's the end of the results of the test. I'm wondering, do you have any questions at this point about anything that you've come across to this test or anything that we've talked about today?
I don't. It all seems really straightforward. It sounds a lot like me. It really helped me to understand myself, and it was really validating. So I really like this inventory.
And then you mentioned before that you're going into a career in education. I'm wondering if you know like the next steps to take toward that, or if you're currently working toward that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one more year of graduate school left, and then after that, I'll seek a full-time job. And I'm planning to work in the field for a couple years and then go back for a doctorate, because something I'd like to do eventually is be the director of an affinity space for certain students, and you typically need a PhD to do that.
Okay. So it sounds like you're already heading in the right direction. Is there any more information that you need from me to help you move forward or to help with anything else?
I don't think so. I think we've kind of covered everything.
All right. Well, it's been great to meet with you today, Riley.
Yeah, you too, Alex.